Hi, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. All right. You're doing fine today. So we finish chapter 10 with the last few slides we were left with, and then we start the next one. So it's, in my opinion, gets better and better in terms of how interesting things are. So if there are no questions, here we go. I need to share my screen. All right, so we were talking about price discrimination. So last time I gave a bunch of examples. Yeah, so if a monopolist is able to distinguish between different willingness to pay or to buy, let's say to pay. Then it is able to discriminate. And if it is able to discriminate, then it is able to extract as much or more consumer surplus than it would. But the tricky condition is number 4. So how do you discriminate? And here we have a bunch of ways you can do it. So if you, based on how somebody is dressed, if you're in a touristy area, you know if that somebody is a tourist or not, then you're able to charge a tourist price. If not, you charge a price for locals based on your accent or whatever. Based on your age, so student prices, based on past accidents and past deductibles you had to pay. So this gives you specific profiles that insurance companies are willing to exploit to give specific contracts to high risk and low risk people based on your how hungry you are or how willing you are to buy a big quantity. Stores do use that all the time. Different countries, if they're able to know that, okay, you come from that country because this is your IP address or all the information you can amass on people's on the internet. So all the trick you see around you is always ways to try to extract information on you and sell you specific stuff.
It's pretty straightforward to use. The guided bombs, however, deserve a separate mention.
Could somebody who's listening to some British person turn off their...
Get to around 7 kilometers.
Thank you. I'm sure it's a better accent than my accent, but still.
Yeah, sorry, sir, that was me.
No problem.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
With regard to price discrimination, is that the reason whenever you see an ad for like a VPN, like they always say, like they always show like examples of people trying to buy, say, a flight or a plane ticket in a rich country, they show the price higher, and then you set it to another country and like so a poor country and the price is lower? Would that be a way to get around the price discrimination?
I've never seen that, but ad, but I have let me give you something that's perfectly representative of that. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. So this is if you are trying to rent a car from the Rennes airport, where I lived in Rennes for 6 years. So you go on their website, and so by the way, what they say is, so this is IKEA prices around the world, and you can see that Australia has a very hard time. They pay super high prices. And still they have similar GDP per capita as the US, for instance, but you see that US has very low IKEA prices, whereas Australia has very high IKEA prices. Russia too, for some reason, they have very high IKEA prices. I don't know why. And still, IKEA's furniture is made in China or Vietnam or these places, so it's not transportation costs. It really is discrimination based on where you live. And so what you, so here's my example. So if you want to rent a car at Rennes Airport, so you go on the rentalcars.com and you say, man, in Rennes Airport, please let me rent a car. And then they say, oh, we're checking the best fares that we can find for you. Just wait a second and see what they show you. So what is that screen for? What's the deal there? Well, what they're trying to show is there is competition. So they're trying to see how many different firms are competing against each other to give you the best, lowest price. So there's no way you can be ripped off. And then next screen you see is this. So here they said you can rent a Opel Corsa, 4 seats, 2 doors. Then you have some, you have to pay for gas or mileage or stuff. And for 3 days, that's 196.95 euros. So it's quite expensive. That's if you go on that website in France. But then what I did try is just, so you have to do 2 things. Changing so using a VPN is not enough. You also have to either remove your cookies or change browsers. So imagine I did that in Chrome, then I would have to use Firefox, for instance. So that otherwise they put cookies on your computers to detect that who you are. And then if you do that, so I just tried using a Montreal IP. And this is the price I got. Same exact offer, but I get unlimited mileage. And for 3 days, same car, it's 51.68 euros compared to 196. So what I'm telling you is not trivial. It's just incomparably more expensive if you change your IP. So that's, but the thing is, you don't have to, what they're telling you in these ads, I guess, is, oh, pay for our IP offer and you're going to save money. Well, you don't have to pay for that. I just used a free VPN and and that's I got to do that. Now I don't know if I have to use a Canadian credit card, and if I use a European credit card, they're going to notice I'm not from Montreal. I don't know. Yeah, and the worst was from Norway. Norway, it was even more expensive than that. Yeah, so that was my short example on price discrimination. All right, so let's go back. Yeah, and then so this was, yeah, we saw that. And then one other way you could discriminate is based on people's willingness to do annoying stuff. Which we technically call hurdle pricing. So a roommate of mine was very good with that. So he said, oh, let's go to the grocery store and buy everything but milk. And then we go to Couche-Tard to buy milk, because Couche-Tard is a bit, they have discounts on milk, and it's few cents cheaper. And I was like, how do you do that? How do you know that? How do you know all the prices by heart? There's just, there's no way I could do that. But yeah, some people just check all the prices and they know everything, and they use coupons and all of these things, and they're able, so some people are expert at that, and they're able to almost shop for free because they all get these discounts and coupons. But for regular falls, or I don't know if it's just me, but I just have no time I just buy what I need from the closest grocery store, and that's it. Yeah. One thing too that's similar to this, that is not exactly based on coupon, but it's some economist, Alvarian has worked on that. Alvarian is a chief economist at Google. He's famous for his work in microeconomics and auctions. So similarly, varying prices a lot. So one day you go to the store and it's $5, and the next day it's $20. And then you ask yourself, but how are they expected to sell something for $20 if you just wait a few days and it's going to be $5 again? Well, so some people have time to check for prices and some others not. Yeah, so again, that's another way to discriminate and extract some surplus from people. All right, so higher level, what's the consequence of price discrimination? So it can get pretty messy, but these are some of the general lessons we can gain from this. So for a firm, it's obviously always better to discriminate that. Yeah, so it's so why is that? So for firm, it's always better to price discriminate than not. Why? Well, simply put, a firm can always charge a single price. So not discriminating is always an option. So, but so if it discriminates, it's because it gains from it. Yeah, and so also price discrimination leads the firm to increase total output, so total economic surplus generated by the market will increase and the outcome will be more efficient. So let me even show you the best example of that. So best example, perfect discrimination. So what is it in a nutshell? So a firm can charge each consumer his or her exact willingness to pay for each unit. So what does that mean? Well, I look at buyer number 4 and I see that that person is just indifferent between paying $15 or just going home and not buying. Well, I'm going to charge $15 or $14.99. And what do? Well, I extract all of the surplus that that person would have gotten. So that person has no surplus whatsoever, and I get all of the surplus. So is that efficient? Yes, it's as efficient as, so result, as efficient as perfect competition. So let's just see it briefly. So where can I draw that? Yeah, I'm going to put some white on this so I can draw over it. Here we go. Even. All right, so now it's, so here it is. So this would be in perfect competition. Let's draw some supply, some demand, sorry, demand and some supply. So let's do that in red. And then we get some equilibrium price. And equilibrium quantity. So this price. What are the surpluses? So this is, of course, the, oh, gee. It's not easy to draw with this. I'll just put it back later. So in red is the producer surplus. And then in blue would be the consumer surplus. So let me put this a bit higher. Yes. Okay. Now it looks better. So here I got the consumer surplus, here I got the producer surplus. And then what happens with perfect discrimination? Well, it looks exactly the same because the firm doesn't have any incentive to restrict production because it's not going to, it doesn't have to do that to raise price. It can just raise price on any unit whatsoever. So then what is the firm surplus? It's this whole area there. Oh, yeah, that's not going to work. Perfect competition. And this is perfect discrimination.
So this would be the consequence for consumers more than it is for producers.
Well, it's a consequence for both. So in that case, producers capture the whole surplus. And here, consumers capture half. So it's the area below the Dunning curve and above the market price. Here, there's no market price per se. There's a price for every unit sold. So yeah, consequence.
But sir, the consumer surplus isn't the part which is upright. Like, I don't know how to say that, but like the
That price, that part here?
Yeah.
Yes, so if you have a uniform market price, perfect competition with unique price, then the surplus for consumers is always the same. It's the difference between how much they were willing to pay minus how much they actually paid. So they have some room for having a surplus. I was willing to pay $10. I only paid $5, so my surplus is $5. Here, I was willing to pay $10, but the firm had perfect information on me and said, oh, you're going to pay $10. So what's my surplus? Well, actually, either I don't buy anything or I just pay $10 and I have zero surplus. So all of the surplus from all the transaction goes to the firm.
Okay.
So, yeah. And the consequence is that total surplus is the same. So it's an efficient situation. So from economists' point of view, there's nothing wrong with this situation there, because all of the units that could have been produced and generate larger societal benefit than their production cost have been produced because the quantity is exactly the same as before. So yeah, let me put a bit more text there. Quantity produced is the same. So just transfer of surplus. So economists don't like monopolies that charge a uniform price, because in that case, we've seen that it creates a deadweight loss. The monopolist is going to decrease the equilibrium quantity or the monopolist quantity, and so not sell a few of the units that would have been beneficial for everybody, so that it can capture some of that consumer surplus. But if there's some magical monopoly that's able to discriminate perfectly, well, it just captures everything and there's nothing wrong with anything, because it can charge a very low price for that last consumer there and still make the sale, and it's all is fine. Now, is everything fine? Well, we can apply other criteria, like, is it fair? Well, it doesn't look too fair to me, but so if you just apply the efficiency criterion, this is exactly the same as this. All right. Questions about this? I think it's the last. Yeah, so this is perfect discrimination. Okay, so if no questions, we can continue next chapter.
Can you just give me a second to finish writing
Oh, yeah,
something?
sure.
I'm good, thanks.
All right. So we continue our exploration of firm interaction with imperfect competition. Well, actually, there was no firm interaction up to now. We just had seen a monopoly with no other competitors in the market. So here we're going to see the most, I would say, complicated case, the case in which you have a few firms. Well, actually, so one is a case in which we have a few firms that interact with each other. That's called an oligopoly. But just before that, we're going to see some other situation that's called monopolistic competition. So you shouldn't mix up the two. The two are quite different situations. So what's monopolistic competition in a nutshell? It's the observation that, as we've seen, when you are a monopolist, then you are happier than being in perfect competition. Why? Because you can charge a higher price and the consumers don't fly off to buy the same object from some other firms because you're a monopolist. So what should I do as a firm? Well, I should try to become a monopolist. How do I do that? Well, by creating some new product. Problem is, it's not so easy to create a new product because there's already a lot of product around out there. So what I can try and do is just create, say, a new shampoo and try to convince people, oh, my shampoo is so much better. It's so different. So you should really buy it. And then if people get really into my exact shampoo and addicted to it in some ways, then I'm able to charge some small markup over the marginal cost and extract some extra surplus or some extra profit out of it. So this is the whole idea behind the monopolistic competition. So that's what we're going to see first of all. Yeah. So yeah, this is an industry with many small firms. So it can be a perfect competition or monopolistic competition. So this is just some statistics. So yeah, Canada's output is largely produced by industry where firms are small. So I didn't know that actually. It's before reading that, I thought, because you always hear about those big firms like oil producing firms or big stores. But yeah, it turns out that yeah, the small and medium-sized companies are still the bulk of the whole economy. Yeah, and then you can distinguish two things. So the difference between perfectly competitive and monopolistic competition. Yeah, let me just say the two things we can see is perfect competition or monopolistic competition. Oops. And then the difference between the two. The key difference is this is uniform products. And this is differentiated product. Yeah, so those are the key. And then since they are differentiated, then you sort of have a monopoly-ish situation in your own product line. But of course, even if I try my best to convince people that my shampoo is so much better than the others, it's not like I can charge 3 times as much. At some point, people are going to say, well, I don't care anymore about your shampoo. It's too expensive. I'm going to buy the competitor. Yeah, so this is small firms. And then that's 2/3 of Canada's industry. And then 1/3 is some industries that are dominated by a single firm or very large, few very large firms. So it can be anything like oil production or trains or retail stores, online. But thing is, things become very complicated. So for instance, what is the sector of Amazon? Is it online retail or is it actually everything? So is it like electronics and books and discs and music? So it's like over everything. So and it's sort of retail, but it's specifically online. So it's very hard to distinguish the different sectors. It becomes complicated at the end. Yeah, so examples of that: groceries, life insurance, so big players in the insurance sector. This is normal because you have to have a large pool of clients so that insurance works. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Railway industry, you have Via Rail. Yeah, all these big. And yeah, how do you measure industrial concentration? So you use, what this is concentration ratio, but it's not really a theory, it's just a way that you can more or less describe an industry as being concentrated or not. You look at the ratio of small firm to big firms. But yeah, so it can be reasonably accurate, but what's difficult is classifying stuff. You're going to realize that when you get to the data side of things, then everything has to do with how do I classify things? Do I classify this as sector A, sector B, sector C? It's always difficult. Here is since still our best effort at doing this. So share of, so here the index is what is the share of sales from this industry that comes from the top 4 firms. So here, if we think about this, then the most concentrated industry is the petroleum and coal industry, and then tobacco products, beverage, transportation equipment, primary metal. So also what you look at, if you look at this, it's hard to spot a real big pattern that's going on. So, is metal concentrated? Well, primary metal looks like it is, but then fabricated metals, not so much. Okay, so lots of small companies that use metal. But yeah, beverage and tobacco products, okay, but food less so. So it's a description of what's going on, but it's hard to extract a lot of meaning out of it. I guess if you're an economist that studies industrial organization, that you memorize this table, I don't know. Yeah, so market structure we're going to study in this chapter are imperfectly competitive. So why? Well, because the price is going to be always a bit above the marginal cost of producing stuff. So it means that there's some markup for firms to extract some pure profit from the sale of some units. But we're going to see that doesn't mean that firms in the long run make profit. So in the monopolistic competition case, that's not going to be the case. Yeah, but they are competitive, so we're not dealing with a monopoly like before, because still they have to care about what their competitors do. All right, so this is when we think about yeah. So this is all. Oops. Don't want to search anything. So this is all about monopolistic competition. So what do you do when you're in a monopolistic competition market? Well, you start by inventing some new product, and then based on how good is your chance of selling it, of extracting some share of the market with it. Yeah, and then you try to sell it and to describe it as something that's much better and much different from your competitors, so that you do not have to sell it at the same price as the other people. So one example here they show is the cereals. So yeah, you could say that especially these two, they look very similar. So they are like they look like they're little squares, but this one is an hexagonal, so that's totally different. And then you can try and say, oh, my cereal is so much better than the other. Well, Cheerios is different, so I'll put the X over that. It's not a good example because Cheerios are little torus there, but these three things are they really look the same. All right. And then so if you convince enough consumers that yes, your product is so much different and better, then you're able to, as I was saying, set your own price on your own monopoly or monopolistic part of the market. The problem is that we've seen before that if you're a monopolist, the best thing you can have is a very inelastic demand curve. Say, for instance, life-saving drugs, then people really need to buy the drug, otherwise they are in very bad shape or they may die. So I can basically charge them the price I want. In this case, it's the exact opposite. I'm trying to convince them that my product is very different, but in the end, it's not really all that different from the other. So the demand curve I face is not a very steep, very inelastic demand curve, but it's going to be a very elastic demand curve. But still, even if it's very elastic, I have some leeway in setting my own price. So that's why we say that firms are a price setter on that specific segment of the market. So the demand is downward sloping, but yeah, what I could say is downward. But very elastic. So very horizontal. firms in have little effective market power. I would say a counterexample. Apple products, computers. So their marketing strategy is so awesome because their computers are white and they are very well put together. They look nice, and they're relatively good quality. So the result is yes. So very good product design and quality, and yeah, apparent quality, I would say. Result, they are able to actually extract a lot of money from their customers. So demand curve is quite steep. People who like Apple products are not willing to buy something else. So Apple can charge lots of money for their product. So that's this is the best case scenario you could imagine. Well, others exist, I'm sure, but this is a perfect case of monopolistic competition gone well. Well, actually, it's not exactly monopolistic competition in the sense that there are not a lot of computer makers, but the way that they are able to distinguish themselves and create such a love for their product that people wouldn't dare changing the brand for something else. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to create some addiction from your customers, and then you can charge them whatever you like. Oops. All right. So how do you do that? Well, to be able to convince people, you need to spend lots of money on advertisement. Yeah, you can. Yeah, lots of form a non-price competition. You compete on many different things. So, oh, the size of the iPhones are round, not square, so it's so much better. And the computer is white, not gray, so it's so much prettier. Yeah, and whatever you do, you try to make sure that competitors don't copy you. Otherwise, if they're able to copy you, then you've messed up. You're going to lose your edge on the market. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know why he's saying that. We're still in the monopolistic competition case. Yeah, okay, so continuing the monopolistic competition. So that was, yeah, not invented, but described, developed by Edward Chamberlain. So what do you have here? You have many firms, freedom of entry and exit. So that's that's the same as, it's sort of the case. So what I'm sort of cannot enter and copy exactly somebody else, because you have things like patents and yeah, so rights, copyrights. So in a case when you enter and exit the market, but perfectly at will, in perfect competition, then you don't even have that. You can do exactly like your neighbor. So that's why there is no reason for a customer to pay 1 cent more for buying from you, because the firm next door is doing exactly the same. Here, it's not, you can enter and exit, of course, but you cannot enter and copy exactly what the other people are doing. Yeah, so they are somewhat differentiated from the others, and firms have some control over their price. Some control meaning so you have to keep in mind that the customers are still going to leave if you charge them too high, but you have some control over the price. Assumption of monopolistic competition. So each firm produces its own version of the industry's differentiated product. So and this is what I was saying. So it's highly elastic demand, because competing firms produce many close substitutes. All firms have access to the same technology and have the same cost curve. So this is an assumption. So of course, producing some different product may entail different costs to some extent. But we say that we don't really mind too much about this. It's not the core idea behind the model. Yeah, okay, so here is there is no strategic behavior. So you're not thinking, oh, if I introduce this product and sell more, what are my competitors going to do? Are they going to sell more or sell less? Here, you have so many competitors that you just think, okay, well, I can't really predict what they're going to do. And anyways, they're not going to react to you exactly, because you have a very, very large number of competitors. This is exactly the same as perfect competition. Yeah, and as we were saying, firms are free to enter and exit the industry. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, this is what it looks like for a firm that have some profit. So here, what you see that you have a very elastic demand curve. So the analysis is like a monopoly. So you do the same as a monopoly. So this is the demand curve. The marginal revenue curve is, since it's linear, the slope is again 2 times steeper than the demand curve. But you see that it's not like a monopoly in which you have some demand curve that looks like this, for instance, in which you can really extract money from your competitors, from your consumers. Here it's very flat because they're able to, if the price, if you want to double the price, then you have 0 customers because just all leave and go buy some other brand of cereals or shampoo. But still, to the extent that you have some control on over your price and the demand is still a bit negatively sloped, then this is what you observe. So you're able to set the price such that the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost, and you have this small markup over the marginal cost. So I have a, oh yeah, I don't have that. Use this. So so this difference there, the difference between the price you set and your marginal cost is what we mean when we say that we have imperfect competition. What we mean when we say that firms are able to extract a pure profit. So, and this is, so we're going to say this is markup. Yeah. Price markup over marginal cost. Imperfect competition. Pure profit. Why? Because here on the, or yeah, let's leave it like that. So the last unit sold, the price you sold it is PS, and the marginal cost is this. So you have this extra, this pure profit from the last unit sold. And what? So can we? Is that firm making a? Yes, go ahead.
I don't understand why you say it's pure profit because it's still under the total cost. So shouldn't it be like pure revenue or something?
Yeah. So I wasn't sure how to put it, but yeah, it's pure. So revenue is this, right? It's PS minus 0. That's the revenue game. So I would say pure. So that's something, that's some phrase we say pure profit. So, but it's true that it's more of a for, yeah. Okay, it's not precise. So let me see, let me rephrase this. It's pure surplus from last unit. So yeah, surplus is a real economics term, but that's the precise term. So there is a surplus over, yeah, price is higher than marginal cost. Price. Marginal cost. Yeah, thank you for being intolerant to my imprecision. All right, so but okay, so that's what's going on in the short term. Why do we say in the short term? Because the question then is, what happens in the long run? So in the long run, why do firms decide to enter a market or not? Why would I enter the market of shampoos or of cereals? Well, I enter the market if I think I'm going to make some profit on it, on the market, and I do not enter the market if I think I'm not going to make a profit on that market. But then the question is, so can I do that freely? No, of course not. It costs some money to develop a new brand, a new product, so to invent something. So it's not like I can enter right away. And this money is going to be paid in terms of fixed cost of starting a new business or it might not be a new business, but it might be a new brand. Oh yeah. So by the way, this is not QL minus QC. So this is the next slide, but this is just going to. Yeah, don't read that. Anyways, they're describing something that's in the next slide. So this is the short run. But as I just said, in the long run, there is free entry and exit in that market. So if there is no profit, if the short run average total cost is actually quite high, because I had some high cost of developing a new product, for instance, then I'm going to leave that market. And if in that case it's quite low, meaning that the profit, which is this blue rectangle there, is positive, then in that case, new firms are going to enter the market. All right, so does that make sense? So if you have questions about this, ask them now, because then we're going to see what happens in the long run. It might become a bit more complicated. Right? Okay, long run. Is that it? Yeah, okay, long run. So actually, I suggest you read that chapter because it's a bit technical. So what has to happen in the long run? So we need to have zero profit. Free entry and exit result in zero profit. So it must be the case that market price must be equal to long run average cost. And what happened in perfect computation? How can do I use this graph or do I not use this graph? Yeah, let me briefly remind you what used to happen in perfect computation. So I had this. So forget about this blue line there. Yeah. I'm going to try to erase it from your memory. Oh, so it's not there anymore. This is not there anymore. So what did we have in perfect competition? What was the slope of the demand curve? Somebody remembers?
Isn't the horizontal sum of something?
Did I say a supply or demand? I meant demand. All right, so I'm going to say it. So in what we've seen is the situation in perfect competition. Firms in perfect competition face a perfectly elastic demand curve. So they don't really have a demand curve, they just have a market price. So they have something like this. And this is what happened. They enter the market or they leave the market until this happens, that the price is equal to the long run average cost curve, so that we are here. So the marginal cost crosses the long run average cost curve at its minimum. And this is the point at which it crosses the market price. So there is no profit. So that's the industry in that case is in perfect equilibrium. Now, what do we have? Well, the situation in, so demand is perfectly elastic. And then here demand is not perfectly elastic. So, but still, same thing must happen. It must be the case that the market price is equal to the long run average cost for it to be not profitable for new firms to enter the market or leave the market. So what do you observe? Well, it has to cross the long run average cost curve here. It's going to be tangent to the long run average cost curve. So demand is tangent to long run average cost curve. So it is the same as here. Is here the price is the demand is perfectly elastic, but it's tangent to the long run average cost curve. It's the same thing, except that it's not crossing at its minimum. That's what's funny about it. So it looks like you could produce your product at an even lower cost, lower price, but it's not happening. So you still have this, this markup there. Here you have no markup whatsoever. The marginal cost is equal to the price. Here you still have your markup, but you have zero profit because you see that the difference between the long run average cost and the price is zero, so no profit. And so what's going on there? So this was puzzling to economists. Initially, they were just discussing, but what happens? It looks like firms are selling stuff that is too expensive, and they should increase their production so they would be able to lower the price even more. But then what is the consensus now? Why is this happening? Oh yeah, okay. And by the way, so this is the thing that was wrong. The competitor, the excess capacity. So excess capacity is the difference between where they could be producing at their most efficient level, which would be QC, would be here, and what they are actually producing. So it's just that the excess capacity is not this multiplication there. I'm just going to. So excess capacity is QC minus QL. Yeah, that's just the difference between this and this. That's what we see. It's not they just forgot a minus there. Yeah, so why is there this excess capacity? Why is it that my firm could produce even more shampoo or more cereals at lower price, given my long run capacity, the size of my firm, and I do not do that? Well, reason for excess capacity. Because fixed cost paid to develop product. Is that how you write develop? Somehow I have doubts.
No, that's right.
Yeah, that's good. Or yeah, okay, I think it's good. So sorry if I'm making sometimes mistakes. New products and consumers like variety. So what happens is once my product is developed, I could start producing even more, but it's more efficient for a firm to just develop a new brand and put it on the market and have this markup and this excess productive capacity. And this is all a result of this downward sloping demand curve. So it's a peculiar situation in which it looks like firms could produce more at better cost, but they don't do it. And this is what happens. So firms have a high fixed cost to start producing this new product. But then once they have it, they're better off, or other firms are better off entering the market and stealing part of their market, instead of just letting them produce as much as they could otherwise. So is that all I had to say about? Yeah. All right. So that's about the same thing. So in the long run, each firm is producing output less than the corresponding, and that corresponding to the lowest point on its long run average cost curve. If the firm increases its outputs, the cost per unit decreases, but the revenue decreases by more than cost decreases, because of the fact that you're a monopolist. So you're better off charging a slightly higher price on your specific product than producing at price equal marginal cost. If firms did produce at price equal marginal cost in the long run, they would actually lose money because they enter the market and they create new products and they pay fixed cost. So yeah, I could, yeah, let me. So the pure, yeah, surplus from the markup is used to pay for the investment to develop. So firms in the long run have so it's somehow related to Schumpeter's creative destruction idea. You create a new invention, and that costs money, but that over time increases the well-being of everybody, and this allows you. So how do you pay for this innovation? You pay by having monopoly profit. So it's pretty much the same idea, but for products in monopolistic competition. And one thing I would add is this. Yeah, this is exactly the same thing as before. Yeah, so just one thing I want to add before leaving. So monopolistic is what explains most of modern trade. So for instance, advanced economies, buying and selling similar products. So why, for instance, would France export cars to Germany and Germany export cars to France? You should normally have just one country that exports car to the other, and that's perfectly fine. Well, it's because cars are monopolistic competition markets in some ways, and people like diversity. So some Germans prefer French car, maybe not that many of them, but lots of French prefer German cars to French cars. And this creation of new brands is even more possible if you export a lot. So you have to pay fixed costs to create a new product. And when you have it, it's best to sell it to as many people as possible. So that's what's driving the most of modern trade. So if you're interested, it's Krugman has done a lot of research on this. All right, so we can continue here next time. Questions?
I have a question about on the activity, the last lab we had to do, lab 10.
So it's okay. So it's specific. So I'm going to end the class then. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. So it's
okay. Yes. Sorry. I'm going to just finish the class and come back in 2 minutes. So see you, everybody.
in the same link.
See you, sir.
Yeah, same link.